Hello everyone, I'm Red Team Beaver, and today I am walking you through hacking Explore by HackTheBox. Explore is an Android machine that will test your enumeration skills as well as expose you to real-life vulnerability from the past. This machine has some very interesting mechanics, so let's get started. Alright, so as always, I will start by adding the IP address of the machine to my hosts file. That way I will easily be able to refer to the alias I will give it instead of the old IP address. So let's do sudo nano hetc hosts. Next, I just need to paste the IP address, tab, and then provide the alias I want to give it. In my case, it's going to be explore.htb. Now, as you can see, I can simply do ping explore.htb, and it's going to ping the IP address itself. Once that's done, we can move on to the Nmap Scan. So as for the Nmap Scan, I will run my classical nmap-sc for the standard scripts, -sv for version enumeration, -p- to scan all ports on the machine, -on to get the normal output of the scan saved to a file. In my case, it's going to be the scans and explore full file. Then I will do -v for verbosity and finally provide the IP address, which is going to be explore.htb. So in order to save some time, I've already ran through the scan, and I will go ahead and just show you the results. So as you can see, it's quite a lengthy scan. We have SSH that is usually not a way in itself, but it's always good to know it's on the machine. Then we have a filtered port for FreeSieve. No idea what FreeSieve is, but we will be using 5555 later on. We have ES File Explorer that looks to be an HTTP website, so we'll go ahead and look at that afterwards. We have this port 45305, which is open with unknown, and Nmap tried to do some pings to it, and nothing seemed to be really working. So let's just skip that for now. And finally, we have another HTTP that seems to be for some kind of Minecraft server. And again, we have no title. So let's go ahead and explore the two most interesting ports, in my opinion, which is going to be the File Explorer. Of course, File Explorer, just the name of it seems quite interesting. And also this other HTTP service. All right, so once we have looked at the Nmap Scan and noticed that this File Explorer thing seems to be quite interesting, and also we have a bucket Minecraft server here, but most importantly, they're both HTTP. Nmap didn't find anything, but still, let's try to take a look if we can see anything ourselves. So let's do http://explore.htb:42135, which is the first one. And we see that we have a not found. Now, if we were to look at the network here, we'd see that this not found is just a 44, which is quite expected for a not found answer. Well, response. So let's move on to the second one, which is 59777. And now we see that we are forbidden, no directory listing. Anyway, if we look at the get request, we see that we have a 43 forbidden. Now that's interesting to me. That means that there's at least something running on this port and that we just don't have access to it. So now that this basic enumeration of the HTTP services are over, well, we could look at the two other open services, so being SSH and also this unknown service. I won't dive too deep on the unknown service because it's unknown and nothing seemed to be quite interesting. I could look up the port and try to guess what's running on there, but this is a very I port, so maybe it's just volatile stuff. So I won't dive too deep into this right now because it's not useful for this box. Let's look more at this name, ES File Explorer. Let's just Google it. Now we need to remember that we are on an Android box, which is my first Android box ever. And as we can see, this seems to be what is happening. Like, this seems to be a File Explorer is a file manager explorer designed by ES Global for Android devices. That's very interesting to me. So is there a way we could, read what's inside of it? So right now, for for the moment, I just opened these two tabs, but for the moment, we don't seem to have a version quite yet. I haven't dove too deep into it, but let's just look and try to fire some stuff, right? So we see that there's a exploit.db file that we could maybe use, which is a CV 2019-6447. I do believe it's the same one here. Yeah, it is. So I like just simple poc.pys. I do believe it may be the same file. Nihal, Zaman, and I will write down on screen who wrote this if I can find the real name of the author. But we see that this is from fsoc 131y. So let's just get this one. I always like GitHub because there's requirements that you can easily download. So let's cd to exploit and let's do git clone and this thing. So let's cd to the new folder it created, and now we see that we have POC and we have requirements. So I will just do a real quick pip3 install -r and use requirements, and that will basically install all the dependencies I need to make the POC work, basically. Then let's do python 3 poc.py. Now we see that we have list get file and we have a couple of commands we can run. So let's just try the most basic first one, list. And then what do I need to do with this? So now this is all the options I can have. So which I guess we can run them with the command line. So let's do python 3 dash oops, I will need to provide the POC -cmd. Let's do, I don't know, list files. And then how do I get the host in? Right here, --host. I do --host, and then target host is going to be explore.htb. So we see that we now have access to a bunch of files, a bunch of folders as well, that seem to be on the remote Android device. So that's awesome. The server responded with 200, which is success. So that's awesome. So let's move on to exploitation and see what we can find inside this sea of files and how we can exploit this machine. All right, so for the exploitation part of this machine, we need to enumerate a lot of files, and there's a lot of things to look at. So I will try to go fast, but also give you the good explanations of what we need to do, right? So we need to look at ways to exploit this Android machine. But first, let's take a broad look at everything that's going on. So we found the files, and now if you go back to just the normal list of what we can do, well, we see that we can also list pics, videos, audios, apps, app system, etc. Now, all of this may be a way in, right? But let's just do it in order. And now let's go to list pics. So let's do -cmd list pics -hosts explore.htb. Now we look that there's a couple of pictures, but one of them is of more interest to us, and that's the creds.jpg picture. Now that's not a standard file, that's not a standard picture. That's somebody that named it creds.jpg and left it inside the picture memory card or whatever is hosted, but they left it on the phone. So let's just look at this. And now if you go back to this, we can see that we can download the file with the --get file and then the file path. So let's do this -get -file, the path --host explore.htb. Now we should have written the file creds.jpg. So once we've downloaded the picture, we can just access it right into our file manager. And in my case, it's going to be inside HTTP, explore, exploit here. And now we can see that we have a JPEG file. That's awesome. So let's just click there, and as you can see, these are credentials, right? And I think it's Christie Explore, but I don't know what Sharp. Oh, Christie Sharp Explore. I don't know. I'm very bad with lead speak. So let's just try to use these to connect to the SSH, right? So let's minimize this, maybe zoom a bit on it, and let's just put it on the side. Now, if that's not spy level stuff, I don't know what it is. So let's do SSH, and let's do Christie at explore.htb-p2222. Yes. Now I need to connect, so let's do kr1st exclamation mark 5h at rp3xp l0r3 exclamation mark. And now we're inside. If we do ID, we see that we are something. We are U0A76. Just like that, we got into the machine, and if we do if config, we see that we are indeed inside the machine. So let's take a look at how we can privilege escalate from there. Alright, so in order to privilege escalate, we of course need to think more about how we're going to do it, like in a more manual way than if it was just a normal Linux machine, for example. Because this isn't a simple Linux machine where you can just put linps on the victim, run it, and then let linps tell you what to do next, basically. No, we need to do some manual privilege escalation enumeration. And if we do our classical Linux manual privilege escalation checks, at some point we'll end up looking at our open ports and what is listening on the machine. And if we look at nstat-l, we see that we have the 5555 port, which we previously saw in our Nmap Scan. Now, we also saw 2222 for SSH, and we saw these two for the HTTP service. But in our case, 5555 was being filtered out. So now, if we do a quick look for Android port 5555, we'll quickly get a couple of nice hits. The first one that seems to be interesting is a developer help manual thing about the Android debug bridge, but also this one, the root bridge. So let's take a look at this one. And if we scroll down a little bit, we'll see that basically in the past, vendors were shipping products with ADB enabled, and it listens on port 5555, which is the same thing for us. And this is problematic because anybody without any password can be root. So that's nice for us because if we want to become root, we want to have the root flag. So how can we do that? Well, we can look into port forwarding, basically port 5555 to our local machine. How do we do that? Well, we do SSH-L, and -L is for the local port forwarding or port tunneling, however you want to call this one. I think this is more tunneling than forwarding simply, but yeah, let's not dive too much into the terms. In our case, local means that I am using this command on my local machine, my Kelly machine, and I want to bring something that's remote to my machine. And in this case, I want to bring the port 5555 to my local host on port 5555. Next, I need to provide the a valid SSH credentials, so Christie at explore.htb. I want to do -n in order to not spawn a SSH shell, basically, and then -v for verbosity, because I like verbosity for this. Oops, and I need to provide the port because it is a non-standard port 2222. I need to provide the Christie password, so let's do it again. kr1st exclamation mark 5h at rp3xpl0r3 exclamation mark. Now we see that we have a local port forwarding listening on a port, well, 555 on the local host. That's awesome. So now how can we access the Android debug bridge? Well, that's where the useful Android manual comes in, right? So if we do, let's just scroll down. So how can we connect it, right? So we need to connect the IP address, to connect to the device by its IP address, right? So ADB connect device IP address 5555. So in our case, this is going to be localhost, and then we need to find a way to spawn a shell from this. But let's do, yeah. So let's keep that in mind, and then I don't know, control S shell, issue shell commands. So we can issue device commands through ADB or start an interactive shell. And to start an interactive shell, we need to use the shell command. So we need to first connect and then start a interactive shell command. Let's do that. So let's do ADB connect localhost 5555. Now we see that we are connected to localhost 5555. Why is it localhost? Well, remember that we port forwarded it to our localhost. That was the failed attempt. But yeah, we will forwarded the remote 5555 to our localhost 5555, right? So now we can access it from our localhost. Next, we can do ADB shell. And now, just like that, we are inside the same shell we had here, basically. So how can we prevesk? Well, if we go back to this little article, we see that anybody without any password can become root. That's awesome. Let's just do sudo dash. Amazing. We see that we have the little hashtag sign. That's awesome. And if I do ID, we are root. That's awesome. So how can we get the flags? Because this isn't any standard machine. Well, we can use a find utility, which is a very strong tool. In my case, I'm going to do find slash, which is the root directory. And then I will redirect any errors to my dev null. And then I want to grab root.text. After a little while, I should see that, yeah. So inside data root.text, we have something. If I do wc-c, you see that we have stuff inside. And we can do the same thing with the, user.text. And we'll actually find a couple. Any of them work. So just choose any one of them. And as you can see, they're not empty. So just like that, congratulations, you hacked your first Android machine, or maybe it's your second, I don't know, but this was my first, so congratulations and thank you for tagging along. Let's go to the outro. Thank you so much for watching this walkthrough of Explorer. If you liked the video, please leave a like and comment which concept you would like me to work on next. If I bring you value, consider supporting my work with the links in the description below. As always, I hope you learned something good and have a great week.